We're going to officially start the webinar. Now we have these three amazing guests here. We're going to be introducing them in a moment. If you don't know me, I am Juliana Proserpio. I am the founder of Echos and Chief Design Officer. I am also an entrepreneur, of course, obviously a designer and an educator. I have been working with design for the past, for all my life. And I am specialized in design future, strategic design, and design for social impact. And I am also the program co-creator of Design Leadership, this new program that we're offering here at Echos. So welcome again. We're very happy to have you all here. If you don't know Echos, we are this independent global innovation lab driven by design. We have three business units. We have Echos, the School of Design Thinking, where we have many courses on design thinking, service design, business design, facilitation design, UX design, digital products, and our latest addition to our portfolio. And I think one of the coolest, of course, the design leadership. We are really trying to help designers who are executive designers or rising design leaders to really occupy this space. As we were just mentioning, design leadership is growing a lot because there are a lot of need in the market and teams are scaling, and we have to articulate the value of design. We have to create future visions for our organizations, for our companies, for our sometimes cities. And this is the role of a designer and a design leader. We also have at Echos Innovation Projects. We help to accelerate innovation in organizations. We work with companies such as Google, Honda, Natura, who is one of the biggest beauty industries. They are the owners of Body Shop. They are the owners of Aesop. They are Brazilian. That's why I'm talking about them. Some people don't know them, but they are now the owners of Body Shop and things like that. We also have Echos Ventures. We accelerate some internal startups inside Echos as well. So welcome. So for the innovation projects, we usually help business to create value and innovate for good. And for the School of Design Thinking, where we are today virtually all together, we're helping people and organizations master the innovation mindset, skills, and tools. So we are global, we are in different locations, and this program, the Design Leadership, is a global program. We are having people from the global masterclasses, they are joining from different locations. We also have the regional sessions I'll be sharing in a minute. So this is our impact. If you don't know us, Echos, we have already more than 40,000 people that graduating our courses, more than 150 projects developed. And we are also proudly members of the Global Design Thinking Alliance. These are all the schools that are part of the Global Design Thinking Alliance. We are the only one who are not academic, not a university, and we're very proud to be part of this group that study and do research on design thinking. So I think you all came here to learn more about these panelists and about the Design Leadership course. So the Design Leadership course is a course to help you improve your design leadership from top global leaders like are here today. I'm going to be introducing in a minute, and regional leaders. There will be 12 global live masterclasses, 12 regional live practices, and you will all be part of one global network. The course is starting July 12th and go up until September. So it's a 12-week program. If you don't know, we're going to be starting with what is design leadership, how to listen deeply and give feedback, how to design delightful products, how to articulate the value of design, the future of service design, creating your vision and design futures, designing for impact, setting up a design practice and team, extracting creativity and pushing the boundaries, maintaining your team to the last mile of design, shaping organizations through design ops, and paths for design leaders. So these are all the topics that we're going to be covering in the course. And these are all our global master classes. Some of them are here in the panel in this session, in this fire session. We have Stephen, we have Phil and Natalia, and we have all of these amazing global design leaders who are going to be giving the global master classes. And we also have all of these amazing regional design leaders. So we have many of them So if you are joining in our course, everyone will come together from every place around the world for the global masterclasses. They're always happening on Mondays. And on Wednesdays, you're going to be having workshops within your region, online, of course. And then you're going to be learning from local design leaders from your region. If you are from North America, there will be leaders from North America. If you are from APAC, there will be leaders from APAC. If you are from Hispanic America, will be from there, from Brazil. So it's different in each region. And we have all of these also amazing regional leaders. So let's talk. So I'm going to stop talking about echoes and design leadership, and we all hope you join. And I wanted to officially start the chat on design leadership, and I wanted to introduce a little bit on what we're going to be talking. And I love this quote from Bruce Mao. He says that to lead is to envision the future and then systemically work to realize the vision. And that is exactly what designers at their best are doing every day. Leadership and design are both processes of social influence that aim to manifest a vision of what is possible. I love this quote from Bruce. This is from his latest book, MC24. And I think it's a great opening chat. So now I just wanted to introduce officially Stephen Gates, Senior Vice President and Product Design at the WW, host of the Crazy One podcast, Natalia Tsiwik, Creative Director at Huge, and Phil Balagtas, founder of the Design Futures. I don't know why there is a black thing here, sorry, of the Design Futures Institute. So we'll just pass the word for Stephen. If you could just briefly introduce yourself, Stephen, and also talk a little bit on what will be your session in the course.
Yeah, so my name's Steve Gates. I'm based in New York City. A second generation creative director. So my dad was actually creative director. If you've ever seen one of my talks, there's a lot of super embarrassing photos of me as a little kid standing on the 700-pound cast iron letterpress that used to sit in my parents' basement. Yeah, I think I've worked across advertising, in-house, in hotels, finance, consulting, and Envision. For the last 3.5 months, I've been the Senior Vice President of Omnichannel Product Design, and apparently my ongoing quest to continue to have unpronounceable titles. I think for the past 5 years have hosted the Crazy One podcast, which is really dedicated to, I think, a lot of issues around leadership, creativity, design, a lot of the things that I feel like we don't talk about, doing a lot of different talks and things like that. Yeah, I mean, look, I think for me, these are the forums I think I'm super excited to be a part of. I think for me that, to be able to do a talk to not only talk about design leadership, about what goes into it, to be able to look at just how do you do it well? Because I think places like this to have these conversations are really rare in terms of just the ability to come together I think a lot of times you can find empathy from people, you can find, a piece of insight here or there, but to really do design leadership is just, it's a different animal. And so I think for me, that ability to come together, talk about that, do it in this format, I think is super, super exciting. So definitely extremely happy to be a part of it.
Thank you, Stephen. It's an honor to have you here. Now I'll pass the word to Natalia Tsiwik. I'm always afraid of pronouncing your surname. Please let us know.
You're not the only one, no worries. So my name is Natalia Tsiwik, and it means a hobnail. So I think this is like more familiar to most of the people. I actually come from Poland. That's why the name is so weird, but I live and work for like over a year. I live and work in Medellin, Colombia, working as a creative director at Huge, collaborating with actually quite a few folks who are here on this call. So I'm super excited and also super scared because they just watch me and we work together all the time. I don't run a podcast, on contrary to Stephen. So like, I'm not going to compete on that at all, but I'm super happy to share the knowledge and basically to share things that that I execute on a daily basis, because this is something like I'm being hands-on. I work with designers. I try to basically share the knowledge because I think it's super important. And my part of the masterclass is going to be talking about how to set up a design team and what's I find like equally important, not to forget after forming a design team, how to set them for success and how to make it work, not only having contracting people, but like what's next? Because having a great team at the beginning is just the beginning. And I'll pass the torch to Phil.
Thanks, Natalia. Phil Balaktis. I'm a design director and president and founder of the Design Futures Initiative. I have been designing and leading for over 20 years now. I'm based in San Francisco, California. Most recently, I left McKinsey & Company like less than a week ago. But I've also, and so I've been designing mostly digital products and experiences, but I've also founded this nonprofit called Design Futures Initiative, which focuses on futures thinking, the use of strategic foresight and speculative design futures for creating strategies. And I've been really working on for the last 10 years. We have a global community. We have over 60 chapters around the world and growing. We have a conference that we do both in the US and Europe, and we've got a global conference coming up soon. That's the end of my plugs. But we've been really trying to figure out how do we use these processes, which some of them born in academia, and in a business context. How can we actually use it in a very strategic, practical manner to help teams and businesses figure out what's going to happen in the future? And that's a little bit about what my masterclass is going to be about. I really want to talk a little bit in my masterclass about the transition from an individual contributor to a leader, because I feel like when I made that transition, there weren't many people around who were kind of giving me like the best advice of what I should be paying attention to. And I think a lot of people really need to understand, what does that feel like? And what's the reshaping and refocus of how you operate? So there's gonna be a little bit of that. And then we're talking about kind of creating a vision. And because I've had to, in every place I've worked, whether it's trying to bring in futures thinking or trying to bring in innovation or innovate on the process, there's always this idea of having to get people aligned. And so I want to talk about like, how do we get people aligned on a vision, creating a new vision, bringing new ideas into any sort of context, and then getting people to rally around your cause, not just you as a leader, but just the cause in general, and stay resilient and excited about it through the whole process. So it should be fun. Hopefully you guys can attend.
Thank you for the three of you. We also have here on this webinar, Daniel Urachi, who is our service designer and also program co-creator. We also have Paolo Armi, our product designer and also program co-creator, and Luna Pigato, design leadership advisor. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask any of us. We will start with some questions for the panelists. So it's time for you to jump in, Stephen, Phil, and Natalia. So the first question is, why design leadership matters? And anyone can start, of course.
Oh, come on, don't make me go first again.
Just waiting for you, Stephen.
Okay, I mean, fine, I'll take this one, but I'm not going first next time. I think it's a little bit to what Phil said, because I think it matters because I think for a lot of us, we're sort of a lost generation that just didn't have great design leadership. I think for a lot of teams that, to what Phil said, I think is really, really important, is almost no companies realize that what makes you good at execution is almost none of the skills you need to be good as a leader. And I think for a lot of companies, it's sort of leadership by happenstance. We're just going to keep throwing people at the problem and keep trying until we find somebody that's good at it. And I think that's part of it. I think the other word, and this is sometimes I get a little bit picky with words. I think that it's because every company in the world needs creativity. I think a lot of times they'll say design, they'll say innovation, they'll say different things, but I think almost all of them need it, but almost none of them realize that creativity and corporate structure do not like to coexist well together. So they need someone who is crazy enough, naive enough, arrogant enough, whatever it is, to be able to come in and say, look, I can translate these two worlds and get them to work well together. And again, I think it's a tough task to sort of meld all those different things together. But I think, I think one is just to be able to have these conversations about what is good and sort of more modern leadership look like. But yeah, I think for a lot of companies, they want creativity, they want design, but they don't have a clue what the hell that means.
Yes, and I mean, how many clients or companies have you worked at today where you're still trying to sell design, right? You still have to do the 101 of like, maybe there's like the Steve Jobs slide or some, some like really old played out example of like why design matters. I mean, and that's why leadership matters. I just came from McKinsey and Company, and it was the first time I'd actually been working as a consultant. And there, 6 years, it had only been really 6 to 7 years where design had been incorporated into this like business strategy consultancy. So I had already kind of come in a few years late, and we weren't selling it as much, but we still had to constantly sell it internally and then also externally with our clients. So until we become normalized, and I don't think that we're normalized yet, because I was always surprised when we worked with a client who didn't know what design thinking was or didn't know what agile was. We need to have someone who could speak to that. And it's not just you as a design leader, but you need design advocates also. Like, it's not just you alone, because it's always hardest alone. You need advocacy, leadership advocacy from the business side and other leadership, from the technology side, from the engineering side. You need all of it to kind of help design play a role, an important role, not just like make stuff look pretty and make it sell, but like really have a very strategic advantage or strategic value in the business.
And I think it's not only a business need, but also like the team themselves. They are looking for people who just gonna be their mentor or a role model, something that like maybe most of us didn't have when we were, like basically growing, and we're just like relying on a gut feeling and trying to see like the good examples or like watching things online. And basically, I think right now, even though we work remotely, I think people do need this kind of a person who's like gonna lead the way or protect them or just like try to bring the creativity and just like channel it in the proper way. Because right now there are like hell loads of very talented designers and they're amazing as freelancers, but when they actually come to a team, oh God, that can be really, really messy. Because, well, where else can you see so many egos? Maybe in architecture, but like, same shit. Like basically it's really, really important to have somebody who's like, well, not maybe managing, but more like showing the way or making sure that the team work well together, not only the design, because I think it goes in parallel. Design, like work with design people, and both things are equally important, and they both equally need design leadership.
So if you want to add anything, please do. I'm going to be asking questions, but I want this to be also very organic and the conversation to flow. So if you ever want to add anything, please do. I just wanted to do a follow-up question. You just told me why design leadership matters, but I wanted to see, what do you think means a good design leadership? What is a great design leadership? Because we probably felt already what it means a bad design leadership. We probably all, either we have been those, or we had someone who was our design leader who was not doing the best job. What do you think is a great design leadership?
I'll start this one. Unless you want to, Steve. I guess this is sort of a weird answer, but I feel like the best design leaders are the ones who don't really realize they're a leader. They're just kind of doing the job. And yeah, they've got a title and a role, but they don't kind of play into the hierarchy. They don't really have to show their portfolio or their resume either. Like, you trust them just by their rhetoric. You can tell they have experience because they can use, whatever the vocabulary examples or whatever it might be. But you are so inspired by listening to this person talk that you just want to believe everything. They sort of create this belief system for you that makes you just want to kind of, again, like I said, rally behind them. But I also think that there's also this art for how a leader communicates both with their team, their reports, but also within their peers. Also, they know how to kind of communicate up and down and laterally, and change the language enough so that other people can also follow them. Communication, I think, is so important, right? Like, leaders, like, the teams don't really see the stuff that leaders create. They're not in sketch every day showing like visual examples of like why they're a leader. They're really just kind of talking, and you're doing a little project management and things like that. But for the most part, you've got to kind of listen to them. There's a lot of other technical details I'm sure that leaders are really good at. But for me, that's kind of the one thing. Like every best leader I ever followed is like someone that is more of like a friend and someone that believes in you and cares about your career and your growth and the company success and your product success. And they don't really think about, you don't see them caring about their leadership as much as they do about everything else.
And to add to that, I think it's a person who builds the bridge basically, and to build trust, both from the client side, like somebody whom we're designing for, but also for the team. So it's somebody like the both sides need to trust and need to like basically fall for this person, because that's like without the trust, I don't think anyone gonna buy the design, accept the design, nobody gonna follow, nobody gonna believe, and nobody gonna give the extra mile. And I think this is the crucial thing, that sometimes we're facing the tough situations. And if you're a leader, like a true leader, people just gonna do it because they believe in what we're doing. And if you're a manager, they're just gonna say like, oh, I have to, and I hate what I'm doing. So I think this is also like the crucial thing, that you need to be a person who people actually want to follow on their own.
Yeah, I mean, I would just plus one both of those, because I think a lot of it for me is pulling apart a manager and a leader, right? I think this industry is full of managers, which is just, let's sort of shepherd it from point A to point B and hit a bunch of deadlines and, you know, talk more about process and things like that. And, or just, they make it easier on themselves, where it's just, I'm going to tell you what to do. I think great leadership for me is really understanding that great work is a direct product of teamwork, of trust, of seeing people as people, not as resources, of understanding their creative process, which is a hell of a lot harder. And really, I think, you know, you have to lean into what that is, because it's simpler to manage people. It's simpler to just let good work go out. And I think that's a lot of it for me, is it is the person that generates the belief. It generates the trust. It generates the safe space, that takes the time to understand that people work differently, that, and I think that's where it's a lot of that leadership is. I think you need to have the experience, the confidence, the whatever it is, to be able to set a direction, but still keep the humility and the openness to be able to invest in other people, to be able to sort of talk and to make it a process and a conversation, because I think that's what people will buy into. That's what sort of rallies everybody. But I think there is also a lot of those elements, which is, I'm pretty sure why we all went to art school, was to get into business, to get into defending the team, right? Because I think about, like, if you're doing it well, I think if I'm doing my job well, 60 to 70% of what I do, the team never sees. And I do think that there is some part of just that thankless, like removing problems, removing those things, but making it just sort of look seamless and easy to be able to do that. And that, it's a hard combination, I think, to get right.
Thank you for that. I love that you mentioned as well the difference between being a design manager and design leader. I think that's also very crucial for us to start understanding and discussing. I'll jump for the next question, and I think that's very dear to the moment that we're living now. How can we scale a design team? How have you been doing it? What are the struggles, or what are the sweet spots? And how do you maintain them after that as well? Like you were saying, Natalia, we'd love to hear from you. What do you think about that?
I think this is a very tricky question, honestly, because like scaling a design team, like there is no one pattern that always going to work. Obviously, there are good practices, but you need to know, like, how are you scaling? What are the needs? Are they long-term needs? Because like, obviously, it's easy to say, like, let's hire some people, but do we have a work for them for like a month or 2 months or 6 months? So I think this is the crucial thing, to basically establish who are we looking for and why are we looking for them, and like, should we hire a freelancer or maybe outsource some things? We hate outsourcing, but sometimes that's the solution. So I think this is the tricky thing, first to establish what the needs really are. And once we actually start looking for people, we need to be really honest of like, whom are we looking for and what are the roles? Because right now designers are super picky. They know exactly what they want, or they know exactly what they don't want. So like, even if we just like, you know, talk about unicorns and rainbows, and then they enter the company and it's like, oh no, that's not what I signed up for. So it's not about building per se, just to build, but actually like to build and retain and have the proper thing. And also like scaling, it can easily get out of control, because like when you scale and you feel like, hey, it's amazing, I have 1 more designers, I have 10 more designers, I have 20 more, and then you're like starting to think of like, oh my god, like what should I do? So we should start thinking also about structuring. Do I need a design ops, or should I handle it my own? Do I have leaders? Are these people whom I have ready to be leaders? Because that's another crucial thing. We think that like once you're growing as a designer, you've got like 10 years of experience, you're going to be amazing lead. That's not true. Not everybody wants to do it. Not everybody, it doesn't really grow in parallel. If you're growing craft, it doesn't mean you're going to be an amazing person to actually lead a team or work with a team. So I think it's all about like really laying out what are the needs, what are the people, what are the resources, and what's coming, to actually start thinking about that. So these are my 5 cents. I didn't really reply the question how to scale, but like what to consider to actually scale well.
I'll add to that as well. I really like what you said about making sure that they are prepared for leadership. In past teams, that's really how we looked at hiring, is actually hiring and training as leadership. We don't really think of them as contributors. They're all leaders, and how do we continue to nurture that and grow them within the company. I'm not sure I totally understood the question of like, how can you scale? Are we talking about like, how can you scale in volume or in talent? But I know that anytime I'm in a hiring manager role, it's always, well, it's tough because you got to go through hundreds of resumes, and you've always got to kind of pick through the people who just take like, the 3-hour boot camp online versus the people who do like, 3 to 4 years at a university or college to study design. And I'm always looking for like, the rock stars, but I'm also looking at the sort of hidden dragons, the hidden rock stars. And it's hard to scale when you kind of want everyone to be perfect. But I mean, that's how you do good work, right? Like, you've got an awesome team that's going to stick around if they're doing good work, and you've got the funding for it. So a lot of it's kind of based on administratively, can we actually afford to scale? I'm not sure if I'm totally answering that question entirely also, but I do like the idea of that, everyone that we try to hire, whether it's growth or just kind of improving the talent pool within the company, should be, are they prepped, and could we see them as becoming like a VP at some point in the next 4 years? How resilient do you think they'll be in that role?
Yeah, I think I'll probably take a different tact on that work, because I think, look, a lot of it for me is not about like empire building. And I think, there's a lot of that, like, how do we scale? How do we make the team bigger? I'm much more focused on impact. And I think, this gets back to like, what's the value of design, and like all these ridiculous questions. I think that a lot of the teams that I've worked at or on my own, I think it's if you want to scale it, it's being really clear about what your value is. And again, I think, the way, how does a business look at what you do? And a lot of it goes back to those 2 words I'd mentioned before around design and creativity. I think if you want to scale the impact of a team and scale your headcount and everything else, you need to do it in a way of understanding what has value. I think the fundamental mistake a lot of design teams make is what they invest in is design, meaning the executional aspect of taking an idea and giving it form and function. I would often argue there is probably no company in the world that I think truly values the executional aspect of design. That is something that they feel like anybody can do. They can outsource it. They can get it cheaper. It is a production of something, so it does not get a seat at the leadership table. I think if you are able to shift it to be about creativity, about bringing people on that journey, teaching them how to think, how to come up with new ideas, how to have business impact, how to do a lot of those things, every company in the world wants that. So I think if you look at, if you want to scale it, that's why for me, I always will start with bringing in design thinking, like being in the idea business, that yes, we absolutely have to be good at execution, but that is not our core value proposition. Because if we just say like design is what we do, you have a commoditized relationship to your company. You're in battles with agencies. You can't get headcount because you're just viewed as an executional entity. I think that's where, for me, like if it's about creativity, everybody needs that. We can help everybody with that. We can really become the center of an organization and then really scale that impact without touching an org chart, without doing anything political, where it's just about, because I think we have a superpower that as creatives, we are comfortable being uncomfortable. So many people do not know how to do that, right? Like all the creatives on this call were all the kids that survived, right? Because what we did was we didn't listen really well. And when society and education, your job say like, oh, being creative isn't like a viable job, we didn't listen. Everybody is creative. And I think that we can remind people of that, bring them on that journey. I think that's what I love is like, go watch a kindergarten class. Everybody's a singer, everybody's a dancer, everybody's a painter. Everybody just forgot. And so again, I think in that creativity, you can bring people on that journey and make amazing transformation, but you have to make sure you orient your team around the right value and the right proposition if you really want to get that scale and impact.
So I think that's very interesting, because this is a tricky question for sure. We were talking about scaling a design team or versus growing a design team. I think you were mentioning that it's not as easy as hiring more people, but what you were saying is about, and I think now at the end, Stephen was saying as well, that does it matter to scale a design team or to scale the impact of design? I think is that the key thing that we're trying to do, to scale the impact of design, that it's more strategic rather than just the production beat that would be able to outsource or something like that. Do you have, by any chance, any story or any kind of past experiences, how you did it and what worked? Maybe just a briefing of what worked and what didn't work in your experience.
So yeah, I'll keep going on this one, and then look, I think that for me, it is about scaling impact. For me, it's not about the size of your team. And some of the best teams I know have 15 people. Some of the best teams have 1,000. Like that's not the measure of success, because if you have the wrong structure, the wrong values, you can have as many people as you want. It's not going to get you to a better place. Look, I mean, I think for me, the thing that I always will tell people to be able to look at if you want to scale the impact is focus on three things. I think one, focus on the work, because I do think the work does need to be good. It needs to go out the door. It needs to perform. It needs to do really well. So, but understand that great design is a visual expression of great thinking. So again, focus on the creativity there. I think the second thing, have a way to do it consistently. This is where I've been a fan of design thinking or design sprints, like whatever the methodology is you want. But we have to recognize that to scale it inside of a company, visual design has become product design. Right? Like we can't, the days are gone of like going off and wearing a beret and doing a watercolor or a spirit animal, telling everybody how you don't understand the creative process, right? Like you have to work with engineering and a lot of other things to be able to do that. So have a way to do it consistently. And then I think the last thing is look at culture or mindset, because I do think, you need an entrepreneurial mindset around, again, I think that's what agencies do really well. There's a constant threat that if we do not do good work, we will be fired. In-house teams tend to lose that urgency. So how do you look at mindset? How do you look at being more entrepreneurial? How do you look at sort of being more opportunistic, but with an in-house soul? And so I think that's where, for me at Citi, what I'm doing at WW is to use that formula. And I think, look, at Citibank, we shipped 7 times more product in the first 18 months than we had in the last 7 years with that approach. We went from nowhere to winning Digital Bank of the Year in 18 months. And I think it was just because, again, it wasn't chasing like, oh, let's do prettier work, right? Because that wasn't going to do it. If we did better work, more effective work, smarter work that was grounded in members, like that worked really well. But so again, I think that approach of recognizing if you get those, and again, I did not go to art school to work on any of that stuff. I don't love process. But I think getting that right frees up the teams and lets the good work really flow from there.
And I think it's also about like, going above and beyond, because it's not about like meeting the brief or just like filling whatever has to be filled. It's about like this hunger to do more, to do better, to be, like just to be creative and to look for more and to make people interested, because I think this is something what we are looking for. Even if we're not consciously looking for, we just want to have that.
Thank you. I'll just ask the last question and then we're going to do a game, kind of like the fast track of questions. The last question, I think it's, for me, one of the most interesting ones. I hope you like it as well. And then we have three amazing design leaders here who are really helping to shape what are the next realms of design. So the question for you, for the panelists, is what are the next realms of design? Where do you think that we are going, and what are the next, let's say, the vanguard of design? What are we moving to?
Well, I have to be biased on this question because I've been holding up the design futures flag for a number of years now, and we hope that there's some sort of a momentum or movement, even though we don't like to admit that there's a movement. I really believe that, you know, using more tools, and they could be included in the Design Futures Toolkit, but other tools that allow us to look into the future, both near and far, and be able to help with strategic thinking is going to be, you know, necessary in the next 5-10 years. I mean, we're seeing it start to grow, and it's not necessarily just like another toolkit, another separate toolkit, but it's going to be integrated into design thinking at some point, I think. I mean, just part of the larger tool set. But specifically, I think that there's something on the horizon here, and it's something that I've been thinking about for some time, is the design of policy. And as we think about the future and the impact of our products on the people, on the environment, on society and organizations, policies have to be thought about. And right now, that role is in the hands of different people who are not necessarily design-led or design-minded. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity for us to bring the design process into helping create and design better policies that are more inclusive, using ethnography, and really thinking about the evolution and the continued change and transformation as society's roles change, as society's ethics change. And I think we have a real, very important hand in where that could go.
No, I think I'll sort of add on to that. I mean, look, I think for me, there's two things. I think one is I hope we finally get to an era of having to like say, what is the value of design? Because that's why I always joke, is like I sit with these leaders and it's like, who do you want to be like? And they name some big company. It's like, you know what those leaders aren't doing? They're not asking what the value of design is. So I think that, look, a lot of this is going to be just, this is the way we need to work. I think more companies are waking up to that. I think you're seeing a lot more positions to be able to do that. But I think on the design side, I think we have a responsibility to also just to really recognize and sort of reckon with that we are now in the impact business. That whether it is screen addiction, whether it is, you know, ethical issues, whether it's a lot of these things that, you know, we're sort of, we've emerged from this time of just doing things because we can. And that, you know, again, I think is, you know, a lot more around design ethics, a lot more around what the responsibility of what we're doing, that I think we've hidden behind words like gamification and stickiness and other things like that as these sort of like excuses and ways of being able to get people addicted to screens and to a lot of other things. So I think you're going to see a bit of a reckoning around that. I think there's a little bit of a social awakening around that. But again, I think that, you know, for me, the more of the companies who have very, very hard problems to solve, whether it's around gender and racial equity, whether it's around the impact of their product, you know, again, I think are increasingly looking to how to figure that out. So I think one, it's an opportunity for us to have that impact, but I think we also need to understand and have a maturity around sort of where we're at as an industry that I'm not sure we've had before.
And I completely agree with this. Like, I think it's a little bit coming back to the roots in a way of like, hey, it's amazing to do what we love to do. It's amazing if the client loves it, but we need to, like, we cannot forget that it's something that the end user has to love and need. And, you know, like we became masters of creating things people don't need. And just like creating those artificial needs, or like, you know, supporting marketing and so on. And like, obviously, like that's part of our work, but it's also good to focus on things that are actually good for the societies, that how design can impact our lives in a true, sincere way, and not just like, you know, monetary way, or like just pushing things that we want to sell, but like let's really think, how can we impact? That's why like the ethics are the thing. The, you know, like all those big words are so in, like we shouldn't really forget, and we shouldn't take them as these empty words of like, hey, yes, like let's hire some people that are girls or people of color or something. No, we need to start making real things that we believe in.
Thank you for sharing. I do agree with you. I think that the next realms of design is really connected to design futures, and that's why we also need to think about design ethics and what is the impact. So we are, like you said, we are going to be focusing on these, and this is I agree, this is the next realms of design. Now we're going to do the last part of the webinar, and it's going to be sort of like a game. We call it the fast track. So how we're going to be doing, I'm going to be asking questions, and I'm going to be targeting this question to one of the panelists. And you, Stephen, Phil, and Natalia, will only be able to answer, when I ask the question to you, you're only going to be able to answer yes or no. That's it. And then the other panelists can say yes and contribute with something, and it has to be a quick thing, or you're only going to be saying agree to disagree. And then we're going to move to the next question. And then this is going to be taking like 5 minutes, 4 minutes. And then the audience, please let us know which question you want us to explore more at the end. If you think that this is something you want to explore, that's going to be our last question, okay? So I'm going to start with Natalia. Natalia, would you fire a team member for underperforming?
Yes and no, but yes.
Stephen and Phil, do you have anything to add?
That's a trick question.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's, lack of context definitely baits it.
You can only answer yes and or agree to disagree.
Agree to disagree.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd probably agree to disagree.
Okay. And audience, if you want these questions to be explored more in the end, let us know on the chat. Second question, now to Phil. Phil, do you think design means innovation for business?
Sure. Yes.
Natalia and Stephen?
Yes, but it's not only innovation. So yes, and more than innovation, to follow the pattern.
For me, yes, and changing the way they work as well.
Nice, thank you. 3, Stephen. Can creative teams work well together remotely?
Oh, 100% yes.
Yes and yes. We have the constant proof of that.
Yes, but it's better in person. It can
Okay,
be.
thank you. 4, now to Phil again. Phil, can you measure the value of design?
Yes.
Natalia and Stephen?
Yes,
Yeah.
but it's not always so obvious.
Yes, and it's an approach and an outcome.
Nice. Natalia, do you believe in the Bauhaus mantra, less is more?
Oh, that's the one I didn't want to answer because it's both yes and no at the same time, because it really depends on situation. So I cannot answer, I cannot pick. It's 50-50.
Phil and Stephen, do you answer yes or no?
I think generally yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Now, Stephen Gates, is
Oh.
AI the next big thing for design?
No.
Phil and Natalia?
The next big thing.
Yeah.
I agree to disagree.
Yes. Now
I want to say it's not, but I don't know which one should I choose. I should probably say, yes, I agree with Stephen.
Okay.
And it means no.
Okay, so now I think Natalia again, we should be asking. Natalia, should design be left for designers only?
No.
What does that mean?
If designs should be left only for designers,
Oh,
like
yeah.
formal
No,
designers.
no.
Yeah,
Any
yeah, I would say yes. I think it shouldn't be. And again, this gets back to anybody can participate in that process.
Do we have to be politically correct in these answers? Because
Well, your name has already been censored, so like, go for it.
And last question, I'm going to be asking these for Stephen and Phil. You can answer both. You can say yes or no. Are we reaching the peak of design influence?
what does that mean?
No.
Is this the peak of design influence, meaning that we are in our peak of how much we're going to be
Oh, no.
influencing organizations or the world?
No, I don't think so. There's much work to do.
Nice. Okay, so let's see which question we want to explore more from the audience. What do you think, audience? Which question do you want to explore more?
I mean, I can take the last one about why did I say no to AI?
Okay, go ahead.
I mean, look, because there's a few things. One is I think there's a lot of technologies right now that are just proving out their value. If you look at voice, you look at AR, you look at AI. I think if you talk to most experts, it's like a 4 to 5 year window until those are really going to find real sort of maturity for those. I think, look, for where we're at right now with AI, I think it will help with doing a lot of production work. I think cloud computing and those sort of things help. If you look at what Adobe is doing with Sensei and things like that, I think it can help automate those sort of like the production issues and what's going on with that. But again, I think there's still a human element to the creativity, to ideation, to those sort of things. So I think, will it help with some of the production work? With you want to retouch a photo or go run 150 headlines on top of an ad unit? Sure. I think, again, is it going to be the thing that's going to be able to really understand what somebody needs and to be able to sort of understand that nuance for the short term? I'd say no.
Yeah, I mean, that's like saying, are drones the next big thing for design, or are robots the next big thing for design? These are all just enablers. They're technological enablers. And yes, there's some design that's needed in that, but that's why I think the question's a little bit weird with the next big thing. But there's a lot of next big things that are coming for design or that need design as well, like in the sciences, biological sciences and synthetic biology and physics, quantum computing, a lot of other things that are emerging that could also be big platforms for that will need design as well. So AI is not new, and it's going to continue to evolve. And I kind of wish the spotlight would get away from it right now, so we can focus on some other really important technologies. But I don't think it's like the newest thing that we should be thinking about.
I only wanted to add that I think it's still a medium, right? So like it's still going to be about the idea and the way how we execute it. If we use AI or something else, or something we didn't come up yet with, that's going to be part of what's happening. But it's still not going to change the fact that it just cannot be just the execution.
Thank you. So if you want to, for the audience, if you want to, we're going to just wrap up in a minute. But if you want to ask questions, that's the moment. I think Dan Yerachi, you have been monitoring the chat. Is there a question that you like to raise, or you think that it's bringing a lot of questions? Maybe many people ask the same, or you think it's something interesting for the panelists?
Can I just address my question real quick? Someone asked why I think it's better in person for working remotely. So again, I'm biased, but I really enjoy the physical connection and contact with people. I think as humans, we really need that type of in-person social activity. And I think we can be a lot more creative. I've been in a lot of different studios, and yes, technically you can be very successful working remotely, but when you see the differences between that and remember what it used to be like in the studio, working right next to a designer and just kind of peeking over their screen and seeing what they're doing, I'm inspired and iterating very quickly, it's a huge difference, right? I think it is.
I completely agree. I cannot wait till come back to the office, and I'm fine with mixing the remote with in person, but
Mhm.
like I don't think anything can replace 100% like this, like this vibes of a studio or like people being around and working together.
Yeah.
That's a great, I think, discussion. And I agree with what you both said, Phil and Natalia. The only other side of the equation is that now, especially for our setting here at Ecos, it's been really great to work with the whole team all together remotely, because before they would be groups in each location. So the team in Brazil only working with the team in Brazil, the team here only working with the team here. I think that there is the other side that you can kind of add more sort of like diversity because of it, and kind of have more interesting conversations from different locations, different backgrounds. That's the thing that I'm liking the most of this setup. But of course, I also miss the office. We had the other day, we were doing a discussion and we showed a video that showed a little bit of our office. And one of how neat worked, because he was like, oh, this is a trigger moment. Don't show the office. I miss it so much. And it's like, it's really making us missing these things that we took it for granted before. I think that's an interesting one. Dan, do you have a last question that you wanted to bring from the audience?
Sure. I think there was a question a while back from Pat about is it just plain stakeholder management to change the perception of the rest of the business, of the rest of what the business has regarding design? So I think when we're talking about bringing the value of design to the organization, is it just about stakeholder management, or is there anything else that might be applicable to that?
I mean, I can jump in. I think part of it for me is that I think for me, there's a little bit of the problems in the question, because I think that it's, if all you're trying to do is just sort of manage people and say, hey, look, we're designers, you need to value us, they don't, right? I think it's one of those things where, for me, it's either about how do you bring them into the process? How do you make them a part of this? How do you get them to see what the process is, what the benefits are, to, I think a little bit of that through like shock and awe or sort of whatever it is, because I think for me, there's nothing kills creativity, innovation, and design faster than that sort of internal war and politics over who is right? Is the stakeholder right? Is the client right? Is the executive right? Are you right because you have more letters in front of your title? Like, if that's what it comes down to, if internal politics and that things are more important than the external work loses 100% of the time. And so I think, like, for me, if it isn't about trust, if it isn't about teamwork, if it isn't about investing in those sort of things, really doing that, and it's working at each other, not with each other, they're not going to value, and that's true of any department. They don't value what you do.
I would say that's, I'll take my PC hat off. That's part of the job, part of it. And I'm not disagreeing with you, Stephen. Part of the job is actually being able to manage your stakeholders and have successful, effective communication, because you're never going to have everyone who knows what design is and agrees with you and, will take the simplest answer and support you. You've got to learn how to play that game, unfortunately, whether it's internally or externally. And it's part of the art of being a design leader. And it's one I really didn't want to accept for a long time, because I was just like, I don't want to do this. I'd rather just kind of hang out with my design folks and we'll just talk design and someone else fight the good fight for me. But it's something you sort of have to just learn.
Well, thank you so much. I think we're starting to run out of time. It really does go very fast. So this was just an introduction on the talks and the conversation we'll be having on the design leadership program. Thank you everyone for attending. Special thanks for Phil, Natalia, and Stephen. I just wanted to give you a big thank you. It was amazing to have you here. I'm personally very excited and very happy to be having these conversations. This is something that I have also been hoping to have for quite a while. So I just wanted to ask you, do you have any final tips for the audience? Maybe how to be a great design leader? What would be something that you wanted to share with the audience before we wrap up?
I think public speaking has really helped me be a better design leader, because I'm a natural introvert, and it's really helped me with facilitation of workshops and just communicating what I'm doing. And there's so many different ways that you can practice doing that.
Mine would be the best leadership advice I ever got was, I think being a great leader often comes down to your willingness to be the most confident, uncertain person.
And from me, I think it's like, listen and observe what's happening, and basically you know how to react. I think that's the key.
Well, thank you. So big applaud for the three and for everyone who in the audience. Thank you so much for attending. If you want to learn more, of course, about the program, please have a chat with Luna that is here. The course will be starting in July 12 and goes up until September. It's 7 weeks. All the global masterclasses, we have Phil will be one of our global masterclasses, Natalia in one of our global masterclasses, and Stephen in one of our global masterclasses. We also have all the 9 leaders who will be joining the global masterclasses. So every Monday, if you're part of the course, you're going to be joining the global masterclass, and every Wednesday, you'll be part of the regional workshops that is going to be happening in the evening in your region. Depending where you are, you have to check the website to see. It's a 3-hour session that's going to be very practical and hands-on how to become a better design leader. And today we're offering a special discount. You can use, if you want to enroll in the program, you can take a picture. It's going to be valid until the end of this week, this discount. So if you have any questions, Luna Pigato here, please send her an email. She's always happy also to join on a call and discuss your design leadership journey, or what are the next steps and how you can get involved in the program. And if you are interested, we also have an ebook with interviews. So download the ebook. This is for free. What is design leadership? We have interviews with our masterclasses. Phil is there, Natalia is there, and many other design leaders are there. We have interviews with them and other more content about design leadership. And of course, we have a bit more, a few more fire sessions. We're warming up the conversation before the course. We have a global fire session happening 9th of June. That's going to be the next global fire session. And we also have local fire sessions that are going to be happening in Africa and Middle East, in the good time zone for Africa and Middle East with Hoda Mustafa. She's our ambassador in Middle East and Africa. We also have one local fire session happening in Hispanic America in Spanish. Bernardo is our ambassador there. And we have a local fire session upcoming in APAC with Dan Levy. He's our ambassador here in APAC. So if you want to join any of the sessions as well, it's also for free. So thank you everyone for joining again. Thank you again, Natalia, Stephen, Phil. It was really, really a pleasure. I really appreciate it. And it was really good to have a conversation on this level. I'm happy. And I'm going to be staying here for a few more minutes if you have any questions, but panelists, you're more than welcome to stay, but if you want to go as well, I know that you're very busy people, feel free to also say your goodbyes, and thank you again, everyone. Bye, everyone. Hey, Max, bye. It was fun. Thank you, everyone. It was so nice. Who do we have here? Thais and Sohi, do you have any questions you want to ask us, or are you there? Not.